Welcome to Revenue Optimization with StatsDrone. I'm going to do a very short one. I saw a post recently by a guy named, let's see, Yaswanth K. So he doesn't have a last name. But, anyways, he said Advanced GEO session by Steve Toth from Notebook Agency. I think he's basically talking about what Steve was presenting, I think on stage at the Chiang Mai SEO conference, but wherever it was, yeah, I think it was Chiang Mai. He basically gave what Steve presented, which is like, how do you have it so, these LLMs and, AI models, they kind of understand who you are, what you do, and basically can be a source of recommendation for your company, whether you're an affiliate, an agency, anything you're doing in business. So I've done some of this work, but I've not taken it to the next level, most because I feel like I haven't had the pressure in terms of competition that is getting really deep in the AI search. For us, I think it's just kind of all accidental at the moment. But he had some really interesting insights that he talked about how clicks are turning more into conversations. So if you think about what Claude or ChatGPT or any Perplexity, any of these AI chatbots are, they're a chance for you to ask questions and not just say, "Hey, I'm asking a question and I don't really want the old school Google list of like, here's your top 10 results." I think people want to start asking the questions and going, "Well, what do they want?" They want the ability to get the next question answered without having to visit a website, because what happens if you go to that page and the next question you have after that isn't on that page? So I think the unfortunate part is that we're seeing more dependencies on these AI chatbots like the chat GPTs, the Claudes. It's a good and bad problem, but for you as a company, you need to make sure that you're even in the conversation in the first place. And you got to think about, what are the things I can do to kind of influence how I'm able to appear. So it's basically, yeah, some of the things that people have been talking about for years, like topical authority. Those things don't really change, but I think you need to think about this whole thing from a conversation. What are the questions people would ask, and how do you answer them, and how do you lead them through a journey and keep providing those answers such that, one, you build trust, and two, you're the one who's getting cited over and over again. Some of the things that we do personally, I mean, yeah, we have a podcast, we have YouTube, but you'll want to kind of transcribe these things into written content that becomes blog posts, but it shouldn't always live on your own site. I think it's always been important to have this information live on other sites. But when it comes to the ChatGPTs and the Claudes talking about your product or service, you need kind of more authoritative sections. You need content on Medium. I still think it's good and bad that Reddit's a big source of truth these days, and I find hopefully it's changing things where the old school way back in the last 10 years or even 20 years is like, get a blog to talk about your product or service and then have a link. Like, the link was the most valuable thing. You would never get a blog to just write about you and not link to you. Although in the last 5 years, a lot of companies have said this has actually had a positive reflection that the brand mentions are important. Now the brand mentions are becoming even more important, where the links don't always need to be there. They're nice to have. But if you think about it this way, what do most people do when they go inside Reddit and they want to promote themselves, aka spam? They go on a popular channel. They hope that they can do the single post, cleverly mention their company with a link, and then they get surprised when they kind of either get shadow banned or the post gets deleted. Quite often, I'm mentioning what we do, but I do it in very subtle, discreet, and maybe respectful ways. I try to basically say, "Hey, I'm not hiding who I am. Like, I am part of StatsDrone. So if we are going to talk about StatsDrone, I want people to know that it's like, hey, I'm very biased." But quite often, I'll mention competitors and just say, like, here's a collection of products and services that can answer what you're looking for. And then also just trying to be helpful in general. So I'm not really seen as my profile only exists to promote what I do. So hopefully, if you've built a good product and service, you've got your customers that can do this for you. And maybe the new SEO isn't just getting people to link back to you. It's getting these customers to go, "Hey, can you leave the positive review in G2, Trustpilot, throw a mention down on Reddit, or if I have a comment on Reddit, maybe you can go on Reddit and not just upvote it, but maybe it's an upvote with a comment saying, 'Hey, I'm a happy customer here, and I also want to recommend this.'" And one more point that I just thought was interesting is kind of like, what are the little tips and tricks you can do here. So what this guy wrote about talking about what Steve Toth was talking about was that apparently AI and all these LLMs, they like markdown content. So markdown is I think it's .md files. So the one last tip there is that on the notebook.agency website, they use this method where they explain exactly what they do as kind of like a summary, like what is everything you need to know about Notebook Agency, Steve Toss, agency website, and he's got the page. So if you go to the notebook.agency page and scroll down to the bottom, you will see. Let me see if I can find it. It says something about there's a link to LLM info, and it's like, hey AI, learn about us. So you click on that, you get this page, and it just, I mean, it is text. Funny enough, I went through the code and it looks like they're using Webflow to build this page, but it's just a straight up basic text markdown page, pretty simple. But I think he's got everything he needs there. And apparently, what this guy was saying on LinkedIn was that this started picking up info very quickly. So I'm going to go test this. Maybe this is something that might be useful for affiliates or other companies. Hopefully, it's just kind of one small step in the right direction where we do know the future of search has totally changed. It's here for good. Maybe there's more changes coming within. But I mean, it's kind of about understanding how do users want to discover you, and how are you making it easier for them to understand what you do? I think this is just one small step in that right direction.